Hello, and welcome back once again. It is Dorr and Coch with another segment. Today we will be covering fun with rockets. You can have a lot of fun with rockets. You can. You know, rockets, red glare. That's why we have the 4th of July, shooting a lot of rockets. You know, and 4th of July is a lot of fun, but not as much fun, in my opinion, as, unless you're doing it on the 4th of July, is blasting things with real rockets. So let's get into it.
All righty.
First and foremost, you know, today's video is about rockets. Rockets are used to solve problems with people. And God forbid if you ever had to use a rocket in self-defense of yourself, you know, because that's what self-defense is, or in the defense of others, which is generally what happens with rockets. You know, there's going to be a second fight coming. You're going to have an amazing story to tell, a story that I cannot wait to hear. And there's nobody better in the business to help you with that rocket story of your very own than CCW Safe. CCW Safe is a big supporter of the channel. These are great guys, and if need be, you know, you have that incident, that self-defense altercation, they will handpick your legal team, and if necessary, will send out a representative to do an independent investigation on your behalf. And not just anybody. These guys are like retired cops, retired detectives. They know what they're doing. Check them out in the description below. It's definitely better to have and not need than the other way around. All right.
Okay.
Let's get into it. So, starting off, you know, we've got the venerable, how you say it?
Yeah, venerable.
Yeah.
Let's go with venerable.
I can't talk. M72 Law. These things came on the scene in the early 60s. And, you know, the first versions had some issues with the hot, humid climate in Southeast Asia. There were a lot of duds, a lot of problems, but they did work from time to time. And but they went through quite a bit of evolution. They did replace what we had before, which was the, I guess they had the super bazooka in the 70s to deal with bigger tanks. And then that, of course, replaced the OG bazooka from World War II. And those were rocket launchers. But they were the kind that you had to heft around and reload, which was just kind of very cumbersome. The idea behind the law was a single-use man-portable collapsible system that you just threw on your back. A rifleman could just bust it out, use it, drop it, forget about it. And we've been going with that pretty much ever since. They did go through improvements, you know, throughout the years. By the time Coach got his hands on them in the 80s, they were fairly, I think, did you ever see any issues with them? I've never seen any issues with them.
We had some duds that we, you know, and then, you know, you get a dud law rocket, that's when you call the OD.
Yeah.
Even
that was actually a 9mm trainer. Those aren't real rockets. So we would put, we would put this, they have this like 9mm trainers for both Laws and AT4s actually, and we would actually put a tracer round in there, and that's what you were seeing.
Yeah, it flew about the same, but no, this is, yeah. That being said, there was a place called Green Beach in the Philippines. We used to shoot these things, and the folks that lived out there, because Philippines, man, people live on bombing ranges. That was the one thing they always called EOD on. Nobody approached those things because, you know, depending on the heat, you know, once that thing is armed, and if it doesn't go off, just laying there, your shadow coming across it could possibly set it off. So yeah, that was a real important note there. Don't go downrange on a freaking unexploded law. Now, but for the most part, they work just fine. And the idea behind them was for about the size of the warhead that you would load into your bazooka, you know, you had the whole launcher and everything. So you could carry 1, 2 of these. They're not that big. Took a second to get them open. You know, you open them, telescope out, and then
the directions right on it.
Yeah, they're real simple.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there was some confusion about where you can shoot these from. Guys who watched, was it the second Rambo when he shoots it from inside the helicopter and then flies the helicopter away, something like that?
All the viewers watch all the Rambo.
There you go.
That is always the
but
right
that
answer.
particular one, anytime you see somebody shooting a law rocket from inside of something, he just killed everybody in the room and himself.
If you kept the rocket level and both the doors were open, Think you could get away with it?
I think he shot like right through the windshield. I think that was the, if I remember right. I don't know. Correct me in the comments. I don't know.
It's not one of those things they let you find out.
Now, when I got to Warcom, they come up with this new, the new version was the, let's see, there was the fire foam enclosure. So the FFE, Law FFE, which gave you a little bit bigger warhead. But when a rocket is pushing off of air, right? So it needs a lot of, blast to push off of that air. Well, the idea behind this is you can use a smaller charge to get it going, and you basically put this like IV bag full of slime, for lack of a better word, but you can shoot it from inside a room, out a window. Of course, it would slime the whole frickin' room. You'd be slipping around there afterwards. And of course, if anybody was standing right behind you, it'd kill you. Yeah, which is no different from the actual law.
Yeah, backblast is no joke. There's plenty of footage of other countries like ripping each other apart, not respecting the backblast. So, there's procedures and everything with this stuff. You definitely need to be trained on how to use this stuff before you use it. Don't just read the directions and hope for the best. But that's pretty much the same for the AT4. The AT4s came out quite a bit after the law. And
in the 80s, I think, is when that was the first time,
and it was supposed to be a complete and total replacement, but I've used both systems equally.
The AT4 was bigger, 84 millimeter, and bigger and heavier. It was still an effective item, but you shot one and through the tube.
One and done.
And those, they didn't expand. You're just carrying this whole, it was quite a bit larger. You're not carrying two of those. You might, guys would carry one each. But yeah, it was decent. And again, my time at Warcom, the next best thing was the AT4CS for confined space. So yeah, you didn't have to run out in the street to shoot the damn thing. You could shoot it from behind cover in a building. Now those got fielded. I'm not sure. I haven't heard much about them ever since. I was working with them, doing the testing, but I never got to shoot one in anger. But
I don't think I ever shot one of the gel ones. I think we may have had them, but just the opportunity to use them didn't arise. We had the AT4s and the Laws. They were everywhere on deployment. We shoot both of them in training. I don't recall any of the gel stuff in training. But they did start coming out with the thermobaric warheads, more for urban combat, because we were, because these are anti-tank, anti-armor weapons for a light infantry squad to be able to defend themselves. It was the idea behind these. And, but as time progressed, fewer and fewer tanks to worry about. Air precision is a real thing, and they wipe those out pretty quickly, at least when the ROEs allow. And so you started to see, laws being used on bunkers, being used on buildings, etc. So that thermobaric capability really came into play. And it was around that time, and this is all happening around the time I was coming into the military, but you started to see rails, and the Picatinny rails, and like Vickers style slings built right onto these things. People had put a lot of thought into them, and guys were mounting lasers onto these one-time use rockets. And all of your muscle memory from the beginning of time is to shoot and just drop, discard, and forget. And so as, the weapons guy, the ordnance guy who knows how hard it is to get new lasers, I was just telling the guys, like, do not forget to take the laser off. Do not forget to take the laser off. If you walk past an expended rocket, check it for the laser. Have that screwdriver on your Leatherman ready to go.
Yeah, that laser's got a serial number on it.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know where it is.
And those, those LA5s and things like that, those app peels, those were always the hardest thing to get. I mean, nods were easier to get replacements for and more. We just need more of them. They just give you more nods, but like not those. It was, we always had enough, but like not enough.
Not enough to just
not enough to shoot it once, drop it on the ground, and forget about it enough.
They weren't disposable.
I definitely remember those. But Law AT4, take your pick. The AT4 is going to have more of a payload. It is a stronger munition, but the Law lighter, more portable. It collapses. You just kind of take your pick, and basically, whatever you've got when you get to where you're going is what you're going to use, and that's pretty much universal. But up next, you know, we got to give props to the RPG, the OG. These things are awesome. There was the RPG 2, which is a very lightweight, kind of bare bones version of the RPG we know today, which is the RPG 7. B-40 rockets. I think they fire the same. Is it the same rocket?
I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know.
You can't go that far. I never ran into B-40s, but we ran into plenty of RPGs.
They called them. The RPG is the launcher, and the B-40 was the projectile. Anyway, hit us up in the comments if you know. But
we just call them RPGs.
Yeah,
we have
exactly.
one type of ammunition, whatever came in that box.
From my end, we worked with and cared about RPGs even less than the AT-4s and Laws, but they were around. The partner forces had them, and they were cool. You know, like it was almost like this like little mini mobile man artillery unit you could bring up and have them start hitting things. They're fairly accurate, fairly easy to use. There's an American-made version that has rails and a modern optic that goes with it.
Yeah.
And those are getting issued out to partner forces and allies or whatever you want to call it. They're actually a little bit lighter because the RPG is deceivingly heavy.
Yeah.
It is. You can carry a lot of rounds.
You gamers, you know, you run around with that thing on your back. Yeah, nah, that thing's...
You know, they got some heft to them. But they shoot great. And, you know, everyone has already told you this on YouTube, but, you know, in the movies, they have that, like, exaggerated slow flying. Like, they are super fast. And, like, you'll be driving.
You don't see them flying.
Yeah, it's just like, whoosh, what was that? It was a miss. Drive faster. Like, run. You know, like, there's no dodging them. Like, they're freaking moving, man. And very destructive. They came out with a modernized version of the anti-armor version just for us, you know, for American forces in the Middle East. You know, they took a look at our armor packages and they created a whole new round for those RPG 7s to get through what we were fielding. Those guys are putting those rebar cages on them. There's, you know, the reactive armor on the larger vehicles, but, you know, for the Humvees and the other, like, you know, smaller troop carrying transports, they were purpose building RPGs, and I think they even came out with a even better 7.62 round to defeat our level 4 plates.
The guys that we ran into that had come up, you know, on the ground assault, you know, from the south during the invasion, they were telling stories about getting hit with RPGs, and an RPG will go right through your Bradley fighting vehicle. Okay, it just will. But this is before they had cages and all that stuff. But there's not a lot of room inside those things. So everybody had all their kit, their you know, Alice packs full of crap, just hanging on the outside. Well, they'd take a hit with the RPG, and RPG it's a anti-armor, so it's a shape charge. Well, a shape charge needs to have a certain standoff in order to actually for that explosive jet to form and go through and puncture the armor. Well, what was happening is the RPG was impacting out here on the Alice gear and just blasting the guys' uniforms and toothpaste and everything is just all over the place. So the guys were sleeping cold at night, but they were still alive.
Yeah, well, now it's personal. You know?
Yeah, you just made my life suck that much more. So yeah, we're gonna take care of business. But yeah, so there was a lot of RPG 7 hits on the Bradleys that didn't do the damage that they should have, just because we had all the crap hanging off. Now, once we were, you know, an occupying force, guys didn't have all their crap on the outside. That's when things started. You know, they had to figure out the cages and all that, and all that was to break up that distance, so you didn't have the standoff was incorrect, and you just put a dent in it rather than a hole. Yeah. So. That's what we found.
It's always a race. The munition and the armor.
But RPGs were all over the place, so we learned to use them just because they were available. If you couldn't get AT-4s or Laws, there was definitely RPGs all over the place. And they're not hard to figure out, but you know, if you don't know.
Line up the nipple, plug it in, cock it, shoot it. There is a safety if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where's your safety? I don't use safety. It's a fucking RPG. Like, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah. Just remember to pull the, there's a little pin on the warhead. You pull it, take the cap off. If you forget, there was a bunch of untrained farm boys that shot them at us that had forgot to do that.
As well they should.
Yeah. well, you learn how to use them. And plus they'll airburst. I think it's like at 600 meters. They just go off.
They have a fuse on. They do have a time fuse. Some call it a distance fuse. I mean, it's one and the same. The thing's flying, and as long as it doesn't run into anything, and eventually it'll just go off. And if you know exactly where that distance is, you can position yourself that far away and airburst them into American compounds. Fairly easily. Yeah.
They figured it out somehow. Go figure.
So, I just want to give props to it. It is the bad guy gun, but we have used them, seen them used, had them used on us. And, they're a very old system, and they're not going anywhere because they're very effective.
And I mean, the next one will be this. It's not really a rocket.
Yeah. There's always got to be some controversy in these lists, spice things up a little, is the Carl G. And that is, in American Soft, we all have the Carl G recoilless rifle.
Carl Gustav 84 millimeter recoilless rifle.
Yeah, not a rocket. It does shoot a projectile, big bullet. It's not self-propelling. It just gets fired.
I would say the effect is similar.
Yeah.
But you can carry the gun as well as...
The Carl G definitely has more oomph than an RPG. Like, you can knock out a tank.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking AT4. But the Warhead, I would say, is similar to an AT4. But instead of, if you're going to carry 6 AT4s, you're going to need 6 people. You can put, 5 or 6 of these bad boys in a pack. And and then your gunner's got a same pack, and so you can actually get a decent amount of firepower with it.
We took ruck frames and we just hodgepodge built our own carrying systems for both the Carl G and the rockets. So you'd have a ruck frame on with you can get 3 AT4s on it and then 2 more in the gaps, and then put bungees over the top of them, so one guy could just go back to the truck, get all the AT4s, run them back over if you needed them. Or if you were going to go up on high ground, you'd have one rifleman, one assaulter, just hoof it up there. That was the idea behind it. And then the same thing with the Carl G's. Every round is shipped in a plastic padded container. And they're together, multiple of them together, but you could bandsaw the plastic in between the actual carrying modules. And so you could configure it any way you wanted. And it's just a great way to keep them safe, keep them stable, because you never know when you're going to slip, you're going to fall, you're going to huck the damn thing over a wall, and it means you're about to die or something. It gets crazy. But I never saw any purpose-built, like, multi-shot man packs for that kind of stuff. But anyway, back to the Carl G. Yeah, this thing is basically like the resurgence of the bazooka. The bazooka did fire a rocket, but this is, these are just big bullets, but you could carry a lot of them. There were a ton of different types of shells. They had the airburst shells that actually had a dial on them for distance. And we found that you'd want to laze your target, and then you'd want to have it go off a little bit, maybe 20 yards before that, because the forward momentum would push all of the fragmentation and force forward because it was going so fast. That's one thing we figured out. The heat standard rounds, those things would completely decimate like a 2-car garage or something of that nature. If you got that thing into a window, everybody in that apartment would probably have a bad day. They had the dual warhead, like really long sucker. And that's the thing, is these rounds were all different sizes. They just had to be the same diameter. And they, you'd close the venturi. I believe the primers were on the side.
Yeah.
You'd spin it until it lined up, and then you close the venturi funnel at the back. They had a wicked back blast, a wicked report. You were only supposed to fire a couple of them in a day for training, but nobody ever listened to that shit. And then if you were RSOing, you were a range safety officer, like, you would just be there and the guys would just keep coming to get their shots, and you'd be sitting there sucking it up all day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was one of my favorite mental souvenirs I got from my time. So they're extremely loud. Every time you shoot it, it's like getting smacked. That force just kind of runs through your body. But they are incredibly effective. They're fairly easy to use. They're very reliable. There's all kinds of different sighting systems and scopes and things you can find for them. Lots of different types of rounds.
And yeah, you can choose the rounds, if you carry a number of rounds, or you're going to be, employing it a certain way. Like if you want to get the big double warhead one, so the first warhead puts a hole in the wall, and then a millisecond delay, the second warhead goes through the hole the first one created and blows up in the room. So I mean, there was some specialty around, some good stuff.
Yeah.
So you could make that decision. Whereas AT4, you pretty much had that HE whatever armor piercing.
Yeah, there was the armor piercing and then thermobaric.
Yeah,
and those are the only two. And then that 9mm trainer when I told that.
Yeah,
he gets it. Freaking
9mm tracer. It's the only time I've ever seen 9mm tracer.
Yeah.
Watch it go.
Freaking yeah, that's what they're for. They had them for the Carl G's too, didn't they?
Yeah.
All that 9mm tracer. When a 5.56 tracer just won't do,
go like a little rocket thing or whatever. There was, I forget. It's been a long time to mess with those. And one of them had like this little mini rocket, like a Estes rocket, like hobby rocket that would fly about the same. I don't know.
I don't remember.
It's
But yeah, honestly, guys, out of everything we've covered, the Carl G is king. It's the most versatile. It's portable. It's as reliable as any of them. It is very similar to the RPG, not in appearance, but in capability and how it is fielded. But dude, the Carl G has a way better range and much bigger report and effects on target.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah,
they're pretty much used by all American soft forces. I know the Rangers run them in like dedicated teams. Back in the States, we would set up quick little dedicated teams for specific FTXs, field training exercises, and everybody got range time on every single weapon in the inventory anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then on deployment, they would just kind of get used whenever they could. And some deployments, some AOs were a little bit more Carl G centric than others. But
and there's the big boy, the old javelin.
Yeah. Big old Javy. And that is a rocket.
That is a rocket.
That is a rocket, yeah. The Javelin is not something that was very common in NSW, though guys did use them. There's a school out in Missouri, an Army school, that they would send guys to for like a week or two, and it was both Stinger and Javelin. You got both quals.
Right.
And once you figure out how to turn them on and load them, they're actually super easy to use. During one of my deployments, we were in an AO that was controlled by the Marines, and the Marines have a lot of javelins. And we were there at this, like rear echelon depot area where they keep a lot of equipment and whatnot. And they looked at us and they're like, hey, we're going to take these javelins back down south. We got a bunch of them. We don't have room for them. Do you guys want them? And we just instantaneously, I was myself and one other guy, we instantaneously just looked right at him. And all serious, it's like, yes, we do. And without flinching, the guy's like, yeah, you guys know how to use them, right? And we're like, yes, we do. Of course we do. Neither one of us had ever actually seen one before in real life. So they gave us a whole bunch of these in the case. They gave us the manual, thank God. And we just drove out to the edge of where the red space, where the Indians were, and just sitting there reading the manual, like getting into the bunker systems, and we just figured out how to use them right there on the spot and kept them in the inventory for the rest of the deployment to use as needed.
Yeah, that was they came in a little later than my career would allow, but a bunch of guys I know used them for a bunch of things.
Oh,
not always what they were designed for. I think the warhead I think cost like 70 grand. The clue, the sighting unit was what, 300 grand, something like that. There were not cheap items. But yeah, they've been used to, from bunkers and buildings to guys on motorbikes. All depends on
or just a dude.
What you got. Yep.
Just a dude taking a break. Like she's done shooting, he's having a smoke. He's not supposed to because he's an Islamic fighter, which I thought was hilarious. And they always do the same thing. They hear it, they look up, they go to run, and then bam, it hits. And that's not just with Javelin, that's with other stuff. The Javelin doesn't have any kind of ISR capability, so you'd have to have another platform watching where you're hitting. But some of the other ones...
Well, when you're looking through the clue, it's got a good it's magnification, so you can witness it, but you can't film it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
got to save those memories, a mental bank. Anyway, guys, there's just a quick video. We were talking about time with rockets, using rockets. They're a lot of fun, even in training. It's just a better 4th of July experience, probably the best one. That's one of the biggest pluses and hobbies, if you could have it inside of a career, is just being able to do awesome things with munitions. I remember we took a field trip on my first deployment out to an abandoned area out in the middle of nowhere, and we just decimated these buildings and vehicles and things with all of this stuff: rockets, grenade launchers, just spec demo, just pounding buildings, cement, local buildings that are the same as what you're going to see in an actual mission.
With training. With
Mark 19s.
That's good.
How many Mark 19 rounds does it take to just cave the front of a building? And how many 50 cal rounds does it take? Just being able to have the opportunity to go to a time and place where you could just have carte blanche freedom with all of this stuff. It was really awesome. And, that's where a lot of this, experience and data comes from.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we'd share it with you. And, hope you like the video. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And, if you're not familiar with the War Room, we've been talking about it a lot lately in videos. There's a lot we're not going to say on social media. There's a whole bunch of things we can't talk about, a whole bunch of pictures we can't show, and things like that. And that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be getting into more in the War Room. And then we do live Zoom meetings, we schedule events, we do all kinds of stuff like that, and we really get into more of the nitty-gritty on all these types of topics. So, if you're interested, check it out in the description below, and we'll see you next time.